Imagine a Boeing 747 speeding down the runway, engines roaring, slicing through thick fog. The pilot pushes the thrust lever, turns on the headlights, and the plane reaches a point of no return too fast to stop. Suddenly, out of the dense fog, another massive aircraft appears, another Boeing 747, heading straight toward it, just meters away. What happened next was unthinkable. This is the story of the deadliest accident in aviation history, one that could have been avoided. So what exactly went wrong? Where was air traffic control? And what tiny mistake triggered a disaster still studied today? Let's go back to where it all began. Our story starts on March 26, 1977, just one day before the tragedy. Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, took off from Los Angeles. It was scheduled to stop in New York to pick up more passengers before heading to its final destination, Las Palmas, a coastal city in the Canary Islands. This was a fully booked chartered flight, carrying mostly older passengers heading to enjoy a cruise vacation. Las Palmas, located about 60 miles off the coast of Morocco, is known for its tropical climate and sunny beaches. But in 1977, political tensions were simmering beneath the surface. A separatist group called MPAC was fighting for independence from Spain, and they weren't too afraid to use violence to get attention. And that's where the chain reaction began. After stopping in New York, Pan Am 1736 headed toward the Atlantic with 380 passengers, 13 flight attendants, and a cockpit crew led by 56-year-old Captain Victor Grubbs, First Officer Robert Bragg, 39, and Flight Engineer George Warnes, 46. Meanwhile, in Amsterdam, another Boeing 747 was preparing for the same destination, Las Palmas. This was KLM Flight 4805. In its cockpit, Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, 50, First Officer Klaas Meurs, 42, and Flight Engineer Willem Schroeder, 48. It carried 235 passengers and 11 flight attendants. As both planes made their way toward Las Palmas, something unexpected happened. Two men walked up to a flower shop at the airport terminal, placed a bag outside, and vanished. Inside the bag was a bomb with a countdown timer. At exactly 1 p.m., the airport's reception received a call. The caller identified himself as part of the MPA-IAC group and warned that a bomb would explode in 15 minutes. Airport authorities acted quickly. They evacuated the entire terminal just before a powerful explosion ripped through the building, collapsing part of the roof. Flights were canceled, operations suspended, and incoming planes were diverted. As KLM Flight 4805 approached Las Palmas, they were informed of the bombing and redirected to Tenerife, a smaller island about 70 miles away. After a 25-minute detour, the KLM flight landed at Tenerife's Los Rodeos airport at 1:38 p.m. At the same time, Pan Am Flight 1736 was nearing Las Palmas, but was also diverted to the same small airport. And that's where the stage was set for disaster. Tenerife's airport, surrounded by mountains and located near the Atlantic Ocean, was not built to handle this much air traffic, especially not two jumbo jets. The airport sits 2,000 feet above sea level, and the mountain winds often cause rapid shifts in weather. In moments, clear skies can turn into blinding fog. When both planes landed, the weather was clear, but that quickly changed. Fog rolled in, and visibility dropped to just 300 meters. Then, as suddenly as it came, visibility could clear up to 2 kilometers. With the Las Palmas airport expected to reopen soon, passengers were temporarily deplaned to rest and refresh. Meanwhile, the KLM crew made a decision. They would refuel at Tenerife. That way, they could leave immediately once Las Palmas reopened, avoiding delays at their final stop. But this refueling caused a logistical problem. Tenerife's small airport only had one runway, one taxiway, and a single terminal apron. The refueling KLM jet blocked the taxiway, preventing Pan Am's aircraft from reaching the runway. Pan Am was instructed to wait at the terminal until KLM finished fueling. And so with traffic piling up, weather deteriorating, and tensions rising in the cockpit and control tower, everything was inching toward catastrophe. What happened next would go down as the most catastrophic accident in aviation history. 2 jumbo jets, 1 runway, 0 visibility, and a fatal miscommunication that changed everything. Once KLM completed refueling, their captain prepared to taxi off the runway. But because the apron area was packed with other diverted aircraft, the taxiway was blocked. The air traffic controller instructed KLM 4805 to taxi down the active runway to its far eastern end, then turn around for takeoff. As KLM began moving, the controller gave Pan Am 1736 directions as well. They were to follow KLM down the same runway, but exit at the third taxiway, C3, before reaching the eastern end, allowing KLM to take off afterward. But visibility was deteriorating fast. The dense fog made it extremely difficult for pilots to see beyond a few hundred meters. As Pan Am taxied behind KLM, they were able to identify the first 2 exits C1 and C2 but missed C3. Why? C3 curved back toward the terminal, an unusual layout that may have made it hard to recognize. Worse, Tenerife Airport lacked proper signage at that time, relying on ground markings instead of illuminated indicators. While Pan Am was still taxiing, KLM reached the eastern end of the runway and turned into takeoff position. Their captain radioed the tower requesting takeoff clearance. And this is where a chain of deadly miscommunications began. Due to the thick fog, the tower couldn't visually confirm either aircraft's position. There was also no ground radar system to track planes on the runway. The controller responded with instructions about the flight path KLM would follow after takeoff, but crucially, he never gave a clear takeoff clearance. Still, the KLM captain replied, "We are at takeoff." To this day, it's unclear whether he said, "We're at takeoff" or "We're taking off." The difference matters. The tower responded, "Okay," but a few seconds later added, "Stand by for takeoff, I will call you." That was the key message. It meant, do not take off yet. But KLM's crew never received it. At that same moment, Pan Am's pilots still on the runway heard the earlier conversation and chimed in, "We still on the runway." Tragically, both the tower's standby message and Pan Am's warning were transmitted simultaneously. The overlapping messages caused radio interference. In the KLM cockpit, all they heard was static. Despite his flight engineer warning that Pan Am was still on the runway, the KLM captain dismissed it, perhaps mishearing or misunderstanding, and said, "Oh yes," then pushed the thrust levers forward. The KLM plane began its takeoff roll. Visibility was so poor that the KLM crew could see only about 300 meters ahead. Meanwhile, Pan Am's crew still taxiing suddenly spotted headlights cutting through the fog. At first, they assumed KLM was stationary, but in a heartbeat, they realized the plane was charging toward them. Pan Am's captain desperately tried to turn off the runway, but it was too late. KLM's right engine struck Pan Am's upper fuselage directly through the first-class section, tearing it apart. The KLM aircraft briefly became airborne, then crashed 150 meters down the runway. It exploded in a massive fireball fueled by its full tank. All 248 people on board KLM perished instantly. Back on the Pan Am flight, the destruction was just as sudden. Most passengers in the forward section were killed immediately, but those in economy class near the rear of the aircraft had a chance. A hole had been torn in the fuselage. Some passengers leapt 20 feet to the ground, escaping with burns and broken bones, but alive. Of the 396 people aboard Pan Am 1736, only 61 survived. Rescue teams were delayed. The control tower couldn't see the crash due to the fog and only realized what had happened when another plane, waiting on the apron, spotted the flames and alerted them. Emergency vehicles couldn't move quickly through the dense fog, slowing response time. In total, 583 people died in a matter of seconds. Investigators recovered the cockpit voice recorders and began piecing together what had gone wrong. The verdict, a series of unfortunate events and human errors. The bomb scare at Las Palmas, KLM's decision to refuel and block the taxiway, poor signage, sudden fog. Pan Am missing the C3 exit all played a role, but the ultimate blame fell on KLM's crew. They began takeoff without final clearance, even after their own flight engineer questioned it. The Tenerife airport disaster was a wake-up call for the aviation industry. In its aftermath, major changes were introduced. Standardized phraseology for cockpit communication became mandatory. Ground radar systems were installed at major airports. Runway signage and hold points were improved. And crew communication protocols were restructured to emphasize cross-checking and verbal clarity. Today, Tenerife has two airports: the original northern airport where the crash occurred, and a newer southern airport with better weather conditions and improved visibility. This disaster remains the deadliest aviation accident involving two aircraft. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that change the world. Thanks for watching.